Khayelihle, we have a date for that manifesto, and the COPE leadership going to great lengths to explain that their plan won't include what they call mythical promises, which of course is a subtweet, I suppose, directed at other parties who've already launched their manifesto. What did they have to say today?
Well, absolutely, Marcel. They are saying from their side they want to be offering mythical promises. So they do have a plan. For today, they really did not divulge much to that effect. So they are saying wait for the 10th of March. That's when comprehensively they'll be able to just tell South Africans what COPE will be able to do if they are elected come the 8th of May, where the elections are scheduled to take place. But, Marcel, maybe just to get further perspective, which joined by COPE General Secretary, that's of course Babi Hanare. So, sir, thank you so much indeed for joining us. So, you're saying it's all systems go for your manifesto launch. What are some of the areas that you'll be trying to look at, especially because South Africa is facing a number of challenges?
Basically, what we are going to do is to ensure that South Africa get another chance, because we believe that South Africa need a new start to all the problems which they've had. That's true that the people of South Africa are tired of promises, are tired of seeing corruption, are tired of being unemployed, are tired of their children not getting a proper education at school and at universities, getting shot by police and being killed by police. South Africa needs a fresh start, and that's what we are offering South Africa on the 10th of March. Basically, at all levels, we believe that you can obliterate corruption, especially the state one. We believe that we can be able to build a South Africa where all races are able to live in peace. We believe that all languages of South Africa must be developed to a point where they are all can be used for commercial purposes. And we believe that we have got universities and lecturers who can be able to assist us to develop to that particular level. We believe that the problems of South Africa can be solved in the long term if we can concentrate on our education system and our curriculum and ensure that proper curriculum is taught, and then we'll be able to, in the long term, we'll solve the problems. All other things are short term. The issue of saying we'll build you an RDP house is short term. It's not long term. It's not solving the problem of the country. But once you get more South Africans to live a middle class quality of life, then you are sure that your country's economy and your country's development is assured. This thing of making people believe that when you are a worker, you should not be able to afford to go on holiday, you should not afford to have a proper house, you should not afford to take your child to school, is a myth. If you look into Nordic countries, they were exactly where we were at one point, but the quality of life of the citizens there are far more better. But they are not rich people, they are not multimillionaires, but the environment created there has been an environment created to enable people to live a good quality of life. And that is achievable in South Africa if you look at the amount of money we have. We believe that President Mbeki had worked very hard to ensure that we are debt-free. Zuma comes in and he lands us in the trouble in which we are with, together with Cyril Ramaphosa. Now our country owes trillions of money. So instead of providing services to our people, we have got to service the debt which we are having. And COPE has got an alternative to that, because once we don't have debt, we'll be able to solve all other social and economic problems which we are having.
And so just briefly, before I let you go, looking at the membership that you have and the numbers that you have on the ground, so it's undeniable that over the years you have suffered massive losses. So how are you intending to mobilize and make sure that the message is conveyed across the country? So what's going to be your plan to that effect?
Our plan is to go to the people. We are not going to call meetings where we are going to address our own members. We are going to go to the people who have lost hope in politics, people who have lost hope in politicians. We are going to go to where they are. We are not going to call them to a stadium and bus people and all those things. We have got to talk to the electorate, to the voters directly, and not try to get them to see us on television and then hope that because they see our own members filling up the stadium, then we say no. people support us. We have got to go there. There's more than 10 million South Africans who did not participate in voting during the previous voting session. That's the people we are going to go to. That's the people we are going to talk to. We have got to tell the South Africans, all of them, black and white, that there is hope in COPE. We are going to make sure that there is peace and there is stability in this country, and we are going to ensure that racial harmony is promoted and alive. In conclusion, I have got to say, there's been a lot of talk about everybody who wants to sound militant, wants to say Afrikaans is the enemy. We must get rid of Afrikaans. Recently there was one young chap who was saying all these people who want Afrikaans must go to Holland. 17% of South Africans are Afrikaans speaking, and majority of that 17% are black. So are you saying the colored people in the Western Cape, Northern Cape, and everywhere in the townships around Gauteng must go to Holland just because they speak Afrikaans? Why do you undermine their language? What we fail to do and what we intend doing is to promote all languages and ensure that all languages are treated equally. We are not going to bring down another language so that we can justify why we are not English. The majority of the people in this country are not English speaking. So why should we want to make South Africa an English speaking country, that we are more than England?
And maybe just another very critical issue is the issue of land. As COPE, how are you trying to address, because it is a very enormous issue, it's going to come across very clear, and we've seen from the previous parties, the manifesto launches, the issue of land has just been right at the core. From COPE, how are you planning to address this issue, just briefly?
Look, the problem of land is the problem of what do you want to do with land. The people in Soweto, 4 million people in Soweto who don't have houses, want houses. They don't want a farm. So you need to give them property. The first thing we have got to do is to make sure that every South African, whether in rural areas or in urban areas, get their title deed. Number one. Number two is to make sure that we allocate land to people who need land for accommodation, that they get land instead of just building RDP houses, because there are areas where people were given RDP houses, but people break them down and build their own houses. So you should have given this particular person a piece of land to build their own house. The third one is the issue of land for agricultural purposes. Then you have got to identify people who can do agriculture, and then you must allocate them land. You don't have to expropriate land from anybody, because the majority of the land in South Africa belongs to the state. So the state must just allocate those people the land. But more than anything, they must provide training for the use of land. This thing of expropriation without compensation is a red herring for elections purposes. It is not going to happen, because once you start implementing it, that's why all these political parties which has made the slogan expropriation without compensation, it's a slogan. When you ask them, go deeper, all their solutions are different from each other. So they are going to fight when it comes to exactly what do they mean. What we say is that the Section 25 says to us, you can expropriate land, even without compensation, depending on the history of the land and depending on the use of the land, and in terms of procedures, which you have, legal procedures you must follow. So this is a fallacy to say the Section 25 does not accommodate it. And Section 25 talks about property rights. There is no section in the Constitution which talks about land. The land reform is part of Section 25. It is one part. It's not the real, it's one part. So we have got to deal with land reform completely different from the way people are talking about. If people want to use land for agriculture, we're game.
All right. Thank you so much indeed to Mr. Papi Khanare. That's COPE General Secretary, really expanding on what the party promises to do for the electorate in South Africa. They'll launch the manifesto on the 10th of March, and the venue has yet to be decided. So back to you, Marcel.
Kailihle Khumalo, our reporter there at the COPE press conference, where they've just announced that their manifesto will be launched on the 10th of March, and giving us various feedback following this week's State of the Nation address.